So you're on a path of personal development and self-discovery, and you are working to develop your gifts and superpowers so that you can deliver them to other people and make the best impact that you can. Now, have you ever felt like maybe there's resentment or some sort of a negative feeling that was holding your gifts hostage? Like, have you ever thought about the fact that something that may be blocking your potential isn't some sort of an external circumstance, but maybe the weight of unforgiveness that you've been carrying around with you? And here's a question that might shift some things for you. Like, what if forgiveness isn't about letting go, but about setting your superpowers free? I mean, forgiveness is so misunderstood. It's not about the conditioning someone's actions or forgetting what happened. It's about reclaiming your power and removing the blocks that keep your gifts from flowing freely to others. Forgiveness is going to clear this path for growth and connection and impact. And so I want to dive deeper into ways that you can move past that, especially utilizing the GIVER method. Now, my name's Jake Talbert. I'm the founder and author of the GIVER method. And today, I want to explore forgiveness. And, isn't just that act of release, it is an act of empowerment that lets your unique gifts and superpowers shine. Now, before we dive in, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications. I love it when people comment their thoughts along the way, like the video, things like that. You can also check us out at thegivermethodbook.com. The GIVER Method book is actually being released on Black Friday, coming up on the 29th of November. So if you go to thegivermethodbook.com, you can get on the wait list and get notified, plus get some added bonuses like access to Chapter 1, things along those lines. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those places. Go find us, follow us, let us know you came from YouTube. We don't want you to miss out on any of the different items or conversations or content that we create about unleashing your gifts so that you can make more meaningful impact. Now, you're going to hear me reference GIVER and the GIVER method a lot. And so if you want, you can check out on the channel. There's going to be all sorts of other videos where I break down in depth what the GIVER method is. But the high level view, just so that you know what it is, GIVER's an acronym. And what it essentially is for is it's helping people to identify and develop their gifts and superpowers so that they can provide value to those in their sphere of influence and create intentional impact in their lives. And that you're able to make each engagement, interaction, and discussion as effective and eager as possible. And what I found is that when people develop their gifts and superpowers in this way, they're going to have deeper, more meaningful relationships, which I call relationship riches. They're able to step into who it is they were meant to be, able to make a greater impact in the world. And what I found is that when people develop their gifts and superpowers and deliver them without expecting anything in return, that the universe has a way of paying them back. Now, it may not be direct every single time, but I've seen it happen time and time again. So I want to invite you to let the universe pay you back. And one of those things that holds people back is the idea of these negative feelings, these resentments, grudges, anger towards someone else that you may have. Now, I'm not immune to it. I'm not immune to any sort of resentment or grudge. We all have them. It's something that's just part of human nature. But I can tell you that I've been in situations where I let those negative feelings block me from being able to show up as my best self and deliver value using my gifts and superpowers. Not letting go and forgiving, like when you're holding some sort of resentment and you're hoping that the other person's going to solve the problem or come to you and say, hey, I'm sorry. Like, gosh, that's like sitting and staring at a flat tire hoping that it will fix itself. It's not going to. The punchline is you have to do the work. And so that's why I want to cover each of these principles. And with each one, I'm going to have some action items that you can go do. So I recommend you grab a piece of paper, open up a note, jot down your thoughts as we go. Because, it's great that you watched the video. And this is going to give you some great insights into that release and liberation that's going to come as you let go of, those negative feelings or those resentments. But it's about the action steps. Like, the more important thing is the action steps you take after the video. So write them down. And then start putting those principles into action, today or this week, and start to see that shift and that change. A lot of the time, I'm going to talk about things like journaling. So I recommend journal your experiences along the way, so you can reflect back on where you were to where you've been. So let's dive into these principles of using forgiveness to reclaim your power and unleash your gifts. So our first principle that I want to cover is the gift of self-liberation. So resentment can feel, like it's this invisible anchor holding you back from living freely and fully to what you want to do. It's going to build walls around creativity and compassion and around your ability to connect. It's going to leave you stuck in the past. Forgiveness is the act of setting yourself free. So by letting go of pain and anger, you lighten your emotional load and you create room to focus on your gifts and the joy of giving. Forgiveness isn't about conditioning what happened. It's about choosing your peace over the burden of carrying that resentment. And so start by recognizing, that there is emotional weight that you've been carrying. When I've done grief recovery work with people, we described it as you've been walking around with a backpack, and every time you hold on to something, it's like just putting like a giant river rock in that bag for you. And you can only take so much of that before something's got to give, something's going to break. So resentment often manifests itself as maybe recurring negative thoughts, avoidance of people or situations, or even maybe physical tension. So take a moment to ask yourself, is this pain helping me grow, or is it keeping me stuck? And by identifying areas where resentment could be blocking you, you can actually start the process of finding that release. Focus on, what you stand to gain, freedom or clarity or renewed energy to pursue your purpose. Forgiveness is an act of self-care. It's a gift to yourself that's going to open up doors to your future possibilities. Okay, so I've seen this personally. It hasn't been until recently, while I was doing some grief recovery work, that I noticed patterns of events that caused me to withdraw emotionally from most settings. And it started to create this resentment that affected my ability to offer my gifts and superpowers, especially things like humor and lightheartedness and showing up as my best self. And I felt too weighed down by the negativity, that I had in my heart. And so it took a lot of self-reflection, journaling, and some grief work where I was able to forgive those close to me that I felt aligned, with those events, that led towards these feelings. I was able to forgive them through that process. And, it was such a releasing, it was releasing this emotional burden. It was such lifted so much lightness for me. And so since doing this, I found myself, naturally just slipping back into a world where I can show emotion. I can show more love, more compassion, more empathy for others. I can continue to bring humor and laughter into people's lives. Humor has helped me in many ways, heal awkwardness of things, in the room and situations, but you have to do the work to actually move past your own resentment in order to feel better about it. So the action step here, begin a resentment release, in your journal, a resentment release section. Write down one person, event, or maybe situation that's you're holding a resentment towards, and explore how it's affecting you. Visualize what your life could be like without that burden. Choose maybe one specific resentment to address, and imagine what your forgiveness would be, if it wasn't there. What forgiveness would feel like. What would it do for you? Not for their sake, but for your own. And then write down how it might empower you to move forward with your own unique gifts and superpowers. Now, the second one is the power of, let's just say, emotional alchemy. Forgiveness transforms emotional pain into a source of strength and wisdom. It's a process of turning something heavy, like anger and betrayal, into something constructive, like understanding or empathy. So just like an alchemist may turn lead into gold, forgiveness lets you reclaim your energy and redirect it towards your purpose. So this process, it not only heals, but enhances your ability to connect and contribute. So you start by identifying, lessons hidden within your negative emotions. Pain often carries insights and, about our boundaries, the values we have, and the importance of self-respect. So reflect on your experiences and how they've, shaped your perspective and strengthened your resolve. Instead of focusing on maybe, what was taken from you, focus on what you gained. Gain some wisdom, some resilience, some compassion. And by doing this, you're going to reclaim the narrative and use it as fuel for positive action. So the action step here is try this energy shift exercise. Grab that journal and write down maybe one resentment thought that keeps replaying in your mind and reframe it into a lesson or strength. For example, if you're I was let down by someone I trusted, you can turn that into, I learned to trust my instincts and set boundaries. Think of, one way that you could share this newfound wisdom with someone else. And through that conversation, start to look for the ways of supportive action and ways that you could move forward with that and seeing that change within your life. Now, our third one is the freedom of expectation release. Expectations often get in the way. Unmet expectations, like, they're such a common source of resentment. Whether it's how we thought someone should behave or how a situation should have unfolded, these unfulfilled hopes leave us feeling stuck. That often leads towards very much a lot of grief. Letting go of these expectations frees you to give and create without being tied to outcomes. It's about focusing on what you can control, your intentions and your actions, and trusting that the rest will unfold as it's meant to be. The universe just has a way of doing that, especially when you focus on it from this mentality. So start by examining what were the expectations, and how did they create frustration or disappointment? Ask yourself, like, was this really in my control? Like, what am I holding on to that's holding me back? And look to shift that focus to, your actions and intentions, not the results. And it's going to allow you to experience the joy of giving more authentically. Trust that your efforts will, have an impact. They're going to have a ripple effect outward in ways that you may not see, that are both freeing but empowering because you've done that. So the action item here is, like, identify maybe think of a time where you've had that unmet expectation causing you pain, and reflect on how you can shift your focus from what you didn't receive to what you can offer. And write it down. Commit to taking one small action that aligns to your values without attaching any conditions or expectations to it. Now, the fourth one is about the connection, restoration. Resentment builds walls. We've talked about that. While forgiveness, it builds bridges. So when you let go of lingering negativity, you create that space for healing and understanding and that deeper connection with others. Like I said, part of the GIVER method is getting that relationship riches. So it doesn't mean that every relationship has to be fully restored, but it does mean that you can move forward with an open heart and unburdened by, past hurts and pains. Forgiveness fosters an environment where your authentic connections can really thrive. And so you think of maybe a strained relationship in your life, and consider how forgiveness might change that dynamic, not necessarily for them, but for you. Even if the relationship doesn't return to what it once was, your willingness to forgive can bring peace and clarity. So approach forgiveness as an act of strength, a way to reclaim control over how you engage with others moving forward. Choose maybe one person with, action step, make it clear, this is the action step. So choose one person who maybe you've experienced some sort of attention with, and write a letter. Not that, you're going to send to them, but just to clarify your feelings. In it, you just express what hurt you, what you learned, and your desire to release it. And this exercise, it can help take some of the first steps towards forgiveness, whether or not you actually choose to reconnect with them. And I would say, when you write that type of a letter, similar to when I do work with grief and we do stuff like that, you don't actually ever give it to the person, you don't send it to the person, but there is so much power in writing it. And then if you have the ability to read it to somebody else who is a trusted, confidant, who knows that you won't tell this person or whatever, that release, there's so much lightened burden and weight that's lifted from that. Now, our fifth one is, we want to amplify your impact, right? So resentment acts as a block that limits what your full expression of your talents, your influence, gifts, superpowers can be. When you release that resentment, you unlock a greater flow of creativity and generosity, and really showing up authentically. Now, this not only enhances your impact, but it inspires others to do the same. Forgiveness isn't about personal peace, it's about creating the conditions for your gifts to start to shine. And so you reflect on, how holding on to maybe anger or frustration might be limiting your ability to give as freely as possible. And imagine what it would feel like to channel that energy into your passions and your purpose. Think of all the wasted time holding on to these grudges and resentments, and that could have been put towards so many more positive things. Visualize how much of a ripple effect your gifts could have if they were no longer being held back by some sort of resentment. And so by letting go, you create space that your influence can grow. And so action item here would be to list 3 maybe key talents or strengths, and next to each one, write down maybe, how holding on to resentment might be limiting that full expression. And then write maybe one specific action you can take to release that block, whether it's forgiveness or a conversation or simply choosing to let go. Now, the next one is the forgiveness revolution. Like forgiving yourself is often one of the hardest and most essential acts to do. I've been there, but I can tell you, as we go through this principle, like when you've learned to forgive yourself, the impact it's going to have. Like self-forgiveness, it allows you to release any sort of guilt or regret or self-criticism, creating way more emotional freedom to step into your full potential. And it's about recognizing that mistakes are just a part of growth, that, and you deserve the same compassion that you're trying to offer to others. So acknowledge that you're human. Everyone makes mistakes. It's what we do after that matters. It's how we learn and reflect and grow from it. So reflect on the lessons you've learned from the missteps and how they've shaped your character. By forgiving yourself, you free up mental and emotional energy to focus on your purpose and the people you're meant to serve. As soon as I learned to forgive myself, I actually look at the things I went through. I'm like, man, that sucked at the time. And I can beat myself up all day long about the decisions I made that got me there. But I know that the experiences I went through led me to be where I am today and who I am today. It created my programming. And so I have to forgive myself for those things. I have to let go of those things. So similar to the last one, you write a letter of forgiveness to yourself. Like, acknowledge the mistakes you've made and express compassion for the challenges you faced, and affirm your commitment to growth. Like, revisit this letter maybe when you're feeling self-doubt. There's also tons of things you can do with breath work and meditations and such that help you to move past those sort of things. Now, our next one, I talk a lot about legacy, and there's this liberation that comes that we're looking for. So forgiveness doesn't change your life. It actually sets an example for others. Your journey of letting go creates a ripple effect, inspiring those around you to release their own burdens. And, really, this is the biggest part. This is a big part of leaving a lasting legacy, where you create and show up as someone who, gives freely and lives authentically. And so, when appropriate, share your forgiveness journey with others. So the action item here is document what that journey is, whether it's through journaling or a video or sharing in a group setting, and focus on the lessons learned and the positive change of forgiveness it has brought in your life. Share it with someone who might benefit from your healing story. And then, of course, our eighth one is I call the momentum maker. Like, forgiveness creates momentum forward. Each act of letting go strengthens your ability to move forward, inspiring others to follow suit. It's a cycle of release and renew that it's going to build confidence and resilience and the courage to keep going. And so start with the small acts of forgiveness. Choose situations or feelings that feel manageable and build from there. You can't go and try to forgive your biggest resentment right out the bat. If you can, great. But in most cases, it's start with the small ones that you can manage and work your way towards it. Find those smaller pieces you can forgive. Each step forward reinforces the habit of release and shows that your forgiveness is a skill that you can strengthen over time. And then celebrate the progress you're making, no matter how small it is. So your action item here is going to be, what's your forgiveness plan that you could be really focused on? Each day, choose one small action of a way to maybe release some resentment, and track the progress in a journal and reflect on how these daily acts are, of letting go, are shifting your energy and opening new possibilities in so many different ways. Now, there are just these challenges and these feelings that come up and negative, that hold people back. And I want to address some of them. So, sometimes people have that fear of being hurt again. So once again, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're forgetting or tolerating a harmful behavior. You have to set clear boundaries to protect yourself while you are releasing your emotional burden. Sometimes people have that, they're feeling like they don't deserve forgiveness. Like, remember, forgiveness is about freeing yourself, not validating someone else's actions. And, the weight of the other ones, the weight of long-term resentment. So that's why I say start small. Focus on one step at a time. Each act of forgiveness will build that momentum to the next. So just think of it this way, that forgiveness isn't a weakness. Truthfully, it's a superpower. It's not about the conditioning of what happened. It's about refusing to let that past pain hold you back, to block your gifts from creating the impact that you're meant to have. And as you embrace forgiveness, you clear this path for your talents to shine, your connections to deepen, and your impact to grow. Now, if this video resonates with you, share with someone who might need to hear the message. I want to build this community of givers that are committed to releasing what, no longer serves them and stepping into their freedom. Because being a true giver isn't always just about what you give to others. It's about creating internal conditions that allow your gifts and superpowers to flow freely in every situation. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful ways that you clear the channel for your superpowers to emerge. Your gifts and superpowers matter, and your impact matters. And so anything that's holding them back from reaching their full potential deserves to be gently but firmly released through forgiveness. Now, if you want to explore more into these topics, forgiveness and how it amplifies gifts, discovering gifts and superpowers, and making a greater impact, go to thegivermethod.com, get on the newsletter list, go to thegivermethodbook.com, get on the pre-launch list, get chapter 1 of the book, and when the book comes out, get it, and you'll start to see those ways that you can, transform lives through your giving, and how to develop your gifts and superpowers. Once again, you can find us TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those places, so that you keep getting the content and those ways that you could really start to make an impact. Now, if this video resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up. I recommend, again, share it with someone who might need to hear the message. In the comments, tell us about a time when maybe forgiveness helped you share your gifts more freely, because your story might inspire someone else's journey to freedom. So, gosh, just final reminder, forgiveness isn't a weakness. It is one of the most powerful acts of liberation you can practice. It's not about that conditioning. It's about refusing to let those past hurts block your gifts from creating the impact you were meant to have. And so until next time, just keep growing and keep giving. And remember that forgiveness, it's about letting your true gifts flow so that you can make that greater impact in the world. So use this freedom as much as you can. The world's waiting for you to step into who it is that you're meant to be. And the more you can release the resentments and really turbocharge your gifts and superpowers and how you develop them, the more you can give to the world and start to see that greater impact. And so until next time, have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next video.